Because I'm going to explain to you something that you weren't aware of, but that you should be aware of. It will demonstrate the degree of propaganda and preparation that those who are bringing about the New World Order are engaged in order to prepare the public. And a good portion of it, ladies and gentlemen, is aimed directly at the children of the world. If you took your children to see The Lion King, you will be especially interested in tonight's broadcast. For tonight, I'm going to give you the true meaning of that movie, and I'm going to tell you exactly what was taught to your children. Even though they may not realize it, even though they may not understand it at their tender age, and even though most of the parents in the world who have attended the showing of The Lion King had no idea whatsoever what it was that they were watching, tonight you're going to find out. And when you do find out, I can assure you, most of you will be angry. Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Freemason of the Scottish Rite. Disneyland in Anaheim, California has an address of 1313 Anaheim Boulevard. Unless you understand the symbolic meaning of the mysteries and the symbology of Revenge of the Templars, you may not give too much importance to that address, but those of us who know do. Walt Disney was a very famous Anglophile who was in bed with the FBI and the intelligence community and spied for most of his life on his fellow movie makers in Hollywood. Now, you may not really understand what this is all about yet, but I can assure you, before tonight is over, you'll understand at least a part of it. Now, I'll get this right sooner or later. I'm going to read some verses to you, ladies and gentlemen, from Genesis chapter 4. I want you to pay close attention, and I want you to understand that I don't necessarily subscribe to everything that you're going to hear tonight as my personal beliefs. I'm just going to tell you the message in The Lion King. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. But the people who are bringing about the New World Order believe it, I can assure you. The opposing forces engaged in this battle all agree that they will have a one-world government.
Let me define dualism really quick. In the way that they believe it, it means the equality of opposites. And not only that, it also means that the existence of one thing hinges upon the existence of its opposite. So it's almost like the two opposites are one whole. You can't have one without the other. Like you always hear them saying things like, you can't have good without evil, you can't have light without dark. And so like the yin and the yang would be a perfect representation of that. You have these two opposites that form one whole, and that's how they view reality. That reality is made up of opposites, and that these opposites form our reality, and that if you took one of the opposites away, you wouldn't be able to have the other one. But most people who get into studying this kind of topic with the whole Illuminati and the many facets of that have already noticed these dualistic portrayals in the content that they're making. And I would say it goes beyond that. It's not just about the traditional dualism that most people are thinking about. It's not just about equality of opposites. It's not just about opposites balancing one another out. No, it goes beyond that. So what they believe is kind of like the Hegelian dialectic. So in the Hegelian dialectic, you have the thesis, and then you have its antithesis. So you have something, and then its opposite, essentially. But then in the Hegelian dialectic, it doesn't stop there. Those don't just sit there opposed to each other. In the Hegelian dialectic, you merge the two, the thesis and the antithesis, and you achieve synthesis from that. It's like you take the two opposites, you combine them and merge them into one. And don't get me wrong here, this isn't like the yin-yang, where you have, the white side and the black side, and there's a little bit of the yin in the yang, there's a little bit of yang in the yin. No, what they're talking about is actually commingling all of it. They would take the white side and the black side and just completely amalgamate all of it into one, so that you would almost have like a gray circle, and that's all that would be left. They're not talking about the balancing of opposites. They're talking about taking opposites and making them into one new whole. So that's the difference between your traditional dualism and what they're teaching. And they call this the great work. Aleister Crowley taught this, and people that influenced him and all kinds of people in the occult have been teaching this for a long time. That essentially, and here's the big kicker, the thing that they won't tell you, they believe that when you finish this great work, and what the great work is combining and merging, synthesizing all opposites into one whole. And they believe that when you complete this great work, that you'll achieve apotheosis, that man will become God. And even that in and of itself is the same dualism that we were just talking about. God and man are complete opposites, and that's what they're trying to achieve with the great work. They're trying to merge the two and make them one. But the crazy thing is how they actually plan to accomplish all this. And you have to view it through the eyes of Gnosticism, because like I said, they're Gnostics. And what Gnostics believe is the physical realm is actually just a construct. It's not the real realm. There's actually a realm above it filled with gods and goddesses. And the lowest of all the gods and goddesses, Sophia, created the demiurge. And demiurge means the creator. The demiurge is the one who created this construct, the physical realm. And they would say that he is the God of the Old Testament. And they would say also that he's a deceiver. He's trying to deceive mankind into believing that he's the only God. And actually, the Gnostics would say, there are many gods and goddesses above him. And actually, there's another realm beyond the pleroma, where the source God. I wouldn't even call him God because he's not a person. He's actually just a force.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
Anakin, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, Master.
May the Force be with you both.
May the Force be with you, Master.
May the Force be with you.
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 May the Force be with us.
May the Force be with you.
And may the Force be with us.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be... You go, I've said it enough.
May the Force be with you, always.
And essentially everything comes out from him. All those gods and goddesses down the line come from him. What they believe about the demiurge, though, is that he's dualistic in and of himself. He's composed of opposites. He's chaos and order. He's both evil and good. And so they'll view this one whole demiurge as if he consists of these two opposing forces, and the one side would be evil and order, which order to them is kind of a negative thing, and they view it as kind of a breach of nature, of the natural way of things. And then you have the good and chaotic side.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom. But a king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
Viki, anoints the head of Simba at the start of the movie. And actually, they're very, very clever with these things, because not only does he anoint the head, because what he anoints the head with, actually, it shows a very brief second, subliminal, that he's cracking open the sun. Just take a look at it. It's in the first while of the first 10-20 minutes of The Lion King. He breaks open, gets the oil, the anointing out of that. And to cut a long story short, they believe Simba's dead. He ends up in a barren land with Timon and Pumbaa. Then there's water in the barren land. He grows up and returns as the promised one.
Simba? He's alive. He's alive! It is time.
Right, so the reason I'm covering this really is not to expose that this movie is full of occult symbolism and satanic ritualistic magic and indoctrination of young children. We already know that. That's just a given, unfortunately, now. We're accepting that that is the standard. But this has got some really interesting clues as to the elitist plan and how they work with the Hegelian dialectic, which is just the same thing again. Scar is that Satan, evil dragon, and Simba, or the Lion King side, is the golden. It's both the same beast. Obviously, they're all lions, they're all beasts, right? So, they're both the same beast. And often you'll see Scar attributed with the moon in it. At some points he's like the capstone with the moon behind him. And then you'll get the other side, which is the sun. So it's just 69. It's infinity. It's all part of the same beast. And that is the trick. That's one of the biggest tricks in the book. If you can understand that, you understand their methodology. So this whole thing is a completely Hegelian battle, and something that really woke me up whilst watching The Lion King the other night is exactly the method they are using to deceive people, even the truth movement. And what they're doing is they want people to think that the New World Order is satanic. Now, I'm going to redefine what I just said there, because that may sound very strange to you, but I believe this is the truth. They want you and the masses to believe that this system needs to be disbanded. This system is wicked, which it is anyway, of course, but it's Hegelian. So Scar is, I'll show you in a second, is in his song Be Prepared. He is singing about this New World Order and posing as a Hitler-type figure with Nazi soldiers, and that's what they want you to think. They want you, this is why the controlled truth movement are pushing and pushing and pushing, saying this is satanic, the elite are satanic, they are evil, this system is evil. Why is that? Because they want you to accept the sun, as in the Lion King, as in Lucifer, as opposed to Satan, the false love and the false peace. They want you to root for whatever good comes along to defeat this evil system. So at this stage in the game, it's the externalization of the hierarchy. They want you to know that they are satanic and that this whole thing is satanic, because the so-called Messiah, which is the false Messiah, the false Jesus, will come along at whatever stage of the game that happens. That figure will come along and say, look, here's the answer. Peace, unity, love. But it's the same thing. There's many in the New Age movement who think the Golden Age is a good thing. This is, listen, New Age. Think about it. New Age. This is what the New World Order is. It is the New Age. You're just playing into the Luciferian lie. It's Satan versus Lucifer. Black versus white. It's like the alchemy of it. They want to turn lead into gold. The black cube, lead. The gold cube. It's the defeat of the dragon by the false Jesus. This is what this is. This is what's happening. They want you to think that by the onset of this New Age love, world unity, they want you to think that that is the victory over Satan. But it's not. Satan is a masquerader as light. So it's literally just the defeating of the black by the white, but it's the same beast. Christ is the only way out, the real Christ, the one who was sacrificed on the cross and died for our sins over 2,000 years ago. He is the truth. Their false Jesus, Sananda, the Maitreya, every religion across this world is going to accept Sananda, the Antichrist, the false New Age Jesus, as being a defeat of the dragon. But it isn't. In fact, love shall be the whole of the law, Crowley. Love shall be the whole of the law. But if you stand against their wickedness or their plans or their agenda, you will be seen as a terrorist or disrupting the only hope we have of true peace on earth. If you don't love their plan and their ideologies, Luciferian ideologies, then you will be seen as the one not loving, and you will be put to death. And that is not true love. There is no true love of this world. In this world is complete deception. So as I said, this has been in our faces for ever so long. There's a clip that they removed from The Lion King that was a pilot that didn't make it into the final thing. And Scar even sings of the golden age. Listen here.
Didn't you hear me?
No.
Take her away. I am the king. You must do as I say. Ah, so that's the game, eh? Mutiny. Ah, insurrection. Fine. Have it your own way. I don't require your respect, only your obedience. It's time you were all introduced to your ruler's executive staff. Perhaps not the kind you've been used to, but certainly game for a laugh.
We'd like to assure you no fooling. Red meat is no longer our scene. And if now and then we're seen drooling, it's only an ancestor's gene.
So prepare for a glorious future. Be prepared for the bright golden age.
So maybe they took that out because, I mean, the golden age was actually of the other side, of Mufasa, Simba's side. I don't know why they took it out, but it's pretty blatant. So anyway, he's singing about the same thing. It's the same beast, right? So what's he singing in Be Prepared? Remember, this is the dragon, this is the negative, this is Satan, this is the one they want you to hate in order to bring about the false peace. So prepare for the chance of a lifetime. Be prepared for sensational news. A shining new era is tiptoeing nearer. Where do we feature? Just listen to teacher. I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when at last I am given my dues. And injustice deliciously squared. Be prepared. I will be king. Stick with me and you'll never go hungry again. Sounds like the Mark of the Beast right there, right? Listen to what else he says here. It's great that we'll soon be connected with a king who'll be all-time adored. Of course, quid pro quo, you're expected to take certain duties on board. The future is littered with prizes, and though I'm the main addressee, the point that I must emphasise is you won't get a sniff without me. So, right, and this is where it gets really, really blatant, okay? Remember, this is the same beast, but they want you to think that this one's evil and the Messiah, the false Messiah, is good, but it's the same system. It's still the New World Order. It's still the golden age of Saturn. So, prepare for the coup of the century. Be prepared for the murkiest scam. Meticulous planning, tenacity spanning, decades of denial by the people is simply why I'll be king, undisputed, respected, saluted, and seen for the wonder I am. Yes, my teeth and ambitions are bared, be prepared. They literally brag about these things all over. And if you put your hope in the world, in the plus or minus of this world, you are still trapped within the flesh of this world. Everything that we do, if it wasn't for the Father who loves us and came to this reality, this fallen reality, in the man of Jesus Christ, his Son, his only begotten Son, we would have no hope. This is what it would be. It would just be the battle between two pillars. It's a completely divided kingdom.
But another thing related to the whole pillar symbolism is 9/11, and specifically the Twin Towers. I believe that to the Illuminati, or whatever we're calling them, the Twin Towers were symbolic of the two pillars of Freemasonry, of the synthesis of the two towers, just like the two pillars. And what I mean is the two World Trade Center towers were intentionally destroyed to make way for the one World Trade Center. And yes, that's literally what it's called. Not anything ominous about that. But the One World Trade Center represents what's often called the third pillar, that is, the amalgamation of the first two pillars. And so, again, it's the same idea as the arch being placed on top of the two pillars. It's just another way of representing the same thing. Let me prove my point further, though, about this. Notice in this picture what seems to be an intentional connection made between the layout of the three towers and the layout of the three pyramids in Egypt. The reason I point that out is because the One World Trade Center is actually an elongated square antiprism, which you're probably wondering what on earth that means. And so a square antiprism consists of two pyramids that have been unfurled at their highest point and then interlocked one to another, as you can see in this clip. And so what I'm saying is the two pyramids that make up the new tower likely represent the Twin Towers. And so that One World Trade Center is a perfect representation of the two World Trade Center towers being synthesized into a single whole. Also, if that weren't enough, I mean, just think back to what I was saying about the name, the One World Trade Center. This whole ritual behind 9/11 and the tower is bigger than just buildings. It's a symbolic statement. The statement being made here is about the great work on a worldwide scale. And so that's why they want this worldwide amalgamation, not just the combination of two buildings. They don't care about that. This is just a ritual to show their dedication to this great work, because they think if they achieve this, they'll destroy the construct along with the demiurge, and then they'll be set free to ascend. And obviously, given the massive death toll incurred on 9/11, they're willing to do just about anything to achieve that goal. And so the statement they're making there is, look, if we're going to kill all these people just to put these two buildings together as some stupid symbol, how much more do you think we're willing to do to finish the actual great work? Because part of the great work is not synthesizing two buildings. That's nothing but a ritual. And so that means they're actually hard at work trying to bring about this great work. And so just think about some things that are occurring around you right now on a daily basis. Can you think of any ways that they're working to accomplish this goal in the world today? To show you one, let me just backtrack a tad. Before I mentioned that occasionally the two pillars are portrayed as red and blue, and often they use these types of blue and red as opposing colors for their dualistic symbolism, as we saw in Tron Legacy. But also, remember back to the Hegelian dialectic I showed. The thesis I represented with blue on white, and the antithesis I represented with red on black. But the synthesis I represented with purple on gray. I did this because the combination of black and white is gray, and the combination of blue with red is purple. So purple is often used by the Illuminati to represent synthesis, or the third pillar. So the reason I say all this is because Prince died, and Prince was quite famous for his song Purple Rain. So you had purple light shows and all kinds of purple themes everywhere, supposedly in his honor. However, Prince at one point in his career seemed to allude to his being made up of two different genders, speaking about the Gemini and whatnot.
But during our conversation, the artist shared a very personal discovery he's recently made about himself. This is very interesting.
Recent analysis has proved that there's probably two people inside of me, just like a Gemini, and we haven't determined what sex that other person is yet.
What I'm getting from you is that you were very much in touch with both sides of yourself, your masculine and feminine side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And always have been.
And he even admitted at one point that the symbol he used throughout his career was a combination of the symbols for male and female.
So how did it come about? The symbol came to you, and the symbol is like a combination of female and male?
Yes.
And of course he was well known for being rather feminine in both his dress and mannerisms. But what I'm saying is, Prince was a symbol to the elite of the synthesis of male and female, and his death, while tragic, it seems to be all too convenient for them and their schemes, since transgenderism is the in thing now. I mean, ask yourself, is this acceptance, and more than that, celebration of such a deplorable lifestyle as transgenderism even close to normal? Or does it seem forced, maybe guided by some kind of invisible hand? Like, I don't know, maybe the media, movies, celebrities, music, huge corporations, and on and on and on. And the culture has collapsed on so many similar issues that I believe are all a part of this hidden agenda. The whole LGBT movement, for instance, is clearly a psyop, which is short for psychological operation. But it's obviously been foisted on the public, and they've been preconditioned by all those sources that I mentioned, like media and movies, to accept it. But really, the goal of the elite with this particular psyop, LGBT, is to swap gender roles back and forth over and over until there's fluidity between the two in people's minds, so that there will no longer be any distinction between the two genders. And then the two categories will become obsolete, essentially synthesizing the two together. I mean, you can see this in the language that the LGBT movement itself uses. They have this term called gender fluid, which refers to a person who doesn't identify with any single fixed gender. So what's beginning to happen now is, because our society is beginning to see gender as a social construct, the gender binary, the dual male and female aspects, are no longer thought to be necessary. And so you have the synthesis of male and female occurring right before your eyes in the LGBT community itself. And I mean, besides the whole transgender aspect of it, this is also, of course, assisted by the bisexual and lesbian and gay sexual preferences, which also find their place in the acronym LGBT, because they also assist in the destruction of gender distinction, as one might guess would happen when a person believes a male and female aren't gender binaries meant only for one another. But also on the same topic, I'd like to take a second and point out just how absolutely devoted the elite are to this insane plot. They seriously believe this stuff, because the makers behind those highly Gnostic Matrix movies that we already discussed, who were the Wachowski brothers, are now the Wachowski sisters. They both became transgender for the sake of this Gnostic Luciferian philosophy of theirs. Unbelievable. I mean, these two are seriously devoted to finishing the great work at any cost. But another obvious part of the agenda is the current race wars that are raging in the United States at the moment, that, just like the LGBT movement, will result in a similar abandoning of reality, which, what I mean is, race will end up rejected altogether as just another social construct, which I've already seen this ideal promulgated firsthand.
I am not black. I mean, that's what the world calls me, but it's not me. Along with whatever you call yourself, it's just a label. See, from birth, the world force feeds us these labels. Race was invented in the 15th century to divide people from each other, and it has worked perfectly. Who would you be if the world never gave you a label? Would you be white, black, Mexican, Asian, Native American, Middle Eastern, Indian? No. We would be one. We would be together. No longer living in the era of calling human beings black people or white people.
Evolution. Evolution essentially teaches that men are just highly evolved animals, which in effect erases the boundaries between the two. And what better way to get society to accept the merger of human and animal, that is, chimeras, than to tell them they're already animals? And I mean, we already have examples where humans are mutilating themselves to appear more animal-like. I mean, it's similar to the transgender thing, it's just instead of becoming a different gender, they're becoming animals. And so the thing that I would ask about this is that, how do you go about condemning bestiality and scientific endeavors to make human-animal crossbreeds when man is actually nothing but an animal in the first place? Do you see how they've rigged the system to collapse here? I mean, it seems that they intentionally pushed this view of evolution to begin with so that one day they can pull the rug out from under the people protesting such disgusting things as that. But notice that chimera crossbreeds between man and animal have been the fixation of the occult since the time of the Egyptians, and really it lives on today in the form of like werewolf movies movies and TV shows and vampire dramas and all that stuff. And I realize this psyop seems more unreasonable right now because it's so far out, but mark my words, man, you're gonna start seeing this stuff more and more. And just keep in mind that if you had told somebody in the 90s that gay marriage would be legal in such a short amount of time, they probably would have had the same reaction. But the evolution lie also helps the elite accomplish another key goal in synthesis, that is the synthesis of good and evil, or the blurring of the line between what's good and bad. Because if evolution is true and all we are is highly evolved pond scum, why not murder or lie or rape or a myriad of other things that past societies have deemed immoral? There's no real reason, besides fear of punishment by the government, so that the elite can keep people believing they're animals. They think they can make them act like it too. But it's the same kind of process we saw with the LGBT and the race issue. They're trying to blur the lines between good and evil by making good out to be evil and evil out to be good. Then they change those standards so many times that it makes the two opposites fluid and easily interchangeable, essentially erasing any original distinction made between the two until society deems objective morality yet another social construct. But this stuff is exactly what ordo ab chao, or order out of chaos, means to these elite class secret societies. They bring about unity or synthesis through causing a state of chaos, as we've seen implemented with all these different psyops. But some of the more obvious psyops that are clearly being pushed towards by the elite is that of the one world order I spoke of before, which is sometimes referred to as the New World Order, where there's a one world government, a one world currency, a one world language, a one world leader, and even a one world religion. In other words, they want complete and utter unification of all things. It's always about taking the many and making them into a unified whole. But the last psyop I would point out is one that is meant to merge all the previous ones I've mentioned, and it's like the crowning jewel of the great work, falling just short in the pecking order of the synthesis of the demiurge. And I'm of course talking about transhumanism. And transhumanism can be seen as the merger of man and machine, of biology and technology, even life and death, though organic and inorganic is probably a more accurate way of putting it. The reason, though, that this is the one psyop to rule them all is because it ends the debate on the others. It's the capstone, in a sense. Because once it gets fully implemented and humans start becoming fully machine, there can no longer be any distinction between sexual orientation, gender, race, nationality, not even species will be a valid distinction any longer. And morals? Forget about it, they'll evaporate overnight. Not to mention the simultaneous abandoning of nearly all religion, because who needs to worry about an afterlife when you can't die? I mean, the only religious belief that won't be completely erased by transhumanism will be pantheistic monism, that teaches that all is one and that all is God. I mean, it's the very definition of the synthesis of macrocosm and microcosm, and really any and all opposites, because in pantheistic monism, all things in existence are seen as being one united whole. But this transhumanism agenda will be pushed on us by the appeal to all these other disunities that we've discussed, like race and gender and all these types of things. And people will eat it up because it will be promoted as the means to achieve world peace and to end hunger and to stop disease. I mean, heck, it'll even be promoted as the best social network out there. I mean, there's literally no end to the potential propaganda behind this one. But in the end, it's just a furthering of the religious doctrine about the synthesis. And so, essentially, this massive plot that I've drawn out here is what Nicholson 1968 has coined the one game, meaning this is the true and final agenda behind all their plotting, the real end goal they're striving after, and they'll stop at nothing to achieve. Everything else is just pawns they're moving to get to this final step, and all of it is done to achieve the great work, the eventual synthesis of all things, ending with the demiurge himself.